includes mini cameras, handheld cameras, and also any camera phones. Unfortunately, you cannot go live with your cell phone here in the main interview room. We're looking for the first question for Coach Moser. Let's go down to the front on the right side. Brian.
Porter, Brian Hamilton from the Fieldhouse. How is selling transfers on Loyola different maybe than typical high school players, guys who've been down the road with other schools? So is there a difference in recruiting those guys, finding those guys?
Well, I think the thing that's the same is that young kids, you got to convince them that they can go make an impact. You know, we say all the time in the recruiting process, you know, a lot of times young people want to, in recruiting, they want, whether it's a transfer or a high school kid, they want to make a splash on signing day, you know, or announcement day. Hey, I'm going to this conference, this school. And they think that validates them being a player with all the peripheral people. You know, we always sell, go to a place, go to Loyola, and make a splash on game day. You know, you could have 125, 130 splashes. And that's what we try to convince kids to come in and go where you're going to play. Because that's why the transfer number is so high. You know, one of the biggest reasons they transfer is the role they're playing, or, you know. So the transfers is, you know, we've had some success also is, you know, if it didn't work out there, this is your last chance. You know, what are the things what boxes have to be checked? You know, one is the environment, the culture of what you want. Are you going to be happy? Is it an education that you're going to be proud of? If you weren't going to play, would you be happy with that degree? You know, and then the impact. And that's the thing we've been able to sell at Loyola, because our arrows only had one way to go, is up. And so we've tried to recruit those type of players that will come in and play and impact.
Second row in the center.
Porter, Vahe Gregorian, Kansas City Star. Congratulations.
Thank you.
In the locker room, talked to a couple of players about learning to navigate life's ups and downs. They talked about lessons they took from you, and I wonder what you would say you learned from losing your job at Illinois State, and what that impact that had on your life going forward.
No question. You know, adversity doesn't have to define you. And some of the worst things that's happened in my life, starting at a young age, some of the best things have followed. And I'm proud of that, and it's become who I am. And the more you tackle adversity, the more confidence you have to face adversity. And you know, I've talked to a lot of coaches, and I hope people see that in me, being able to be here with that. That adversity can define you in a positive way. We're all competitive in this. Whether adversity happens to you in the professional life or whatever field you're in, dive into a competitive reinvention process. You know, I dove into this competitive reinvention process where, you know, it happened. It was part of the business. You know, I had to take what I felt I was doing right still and stay confident in myself and my faith. And I had a competitive reinvention going with Rick Majerus. You know, I went in there and I went to the approach where I'm going to be in the room with one of the best basketball minds for however long it was, and I'm going to have the competitive reinvention. I'll be back. I'm going to be a head coach again. And you've got to dive into that. You can't dive into a now, part of that process of adversity, you're going to go through mourning. That's normal. I'm going to tell my guys, hey, you can't feel emotion. You can't feel being down when something bad happens to you. That's normal. You just can't. You can't stay down. You've got to be positive and move forward. And I hope people see that, especially in the coaching profession where it's such a fraternity. There's a lot of great coaches out there, and I can name a handful right now that just lost their jobs, part of the business. And it doesn't have to be over for them. You know, be competitive with the reinvention.
We're going to go to the left side of the room toward the center. Pat. Pat, put your hand up so we can get you the microphone. There you go.
Hey, Porter, Pat
Okay.
40 from Yahoo Sports. I'm wondering with this group of guys if you capitalized on their passing ability by setting your offense around that, or you told them this is how we're going to play and they adapted to it.
Well, it starts in the recruiting process. We recruited to this system. You know, when I was with Coach Majerus, and I've said this a lot, so forgive me if you've heard it a lot because I've quoted him. You know, in his Wisconsin accent, he would say, spacing is offense and offense is spacing. And he, you know, I took so much about the spacing from him, and then we just added a little pace to it. We kind of call it pace and space. And but in the recruiting process, you know, we talk about guys. My assistants ad nauseum understand I like skilled guys. I like guys that can shoot, pass, dribble with this offense. And we've recruited to it into the system, not the other way around, trying to get guys. And then the development's a big part of it. But I tell you the other big part of it, Pat, is that you got to get guys that are willing to share it, move it, be unselfish. And that's why we've recruited so many guys that come from winning programs, 7 state champions, even Krutwig. Krutwig's kind of getting mad at me because I keep saying 7 state championships. He's like, I didn't win a state championship, but I want to win. We went 30-2. He went 30-2 at Jacobs High School, took his team as far as they've ever been, but he doesn't have a state championship, and he's getting pissed at me. So I'm going to include 7 state championships and Cameron Krutwig, who took Jacobs High School to a 30-2 record.
Coach, we're going to move to the front of the room on the right side.
Hi, Porter. Steve Greenberg from the Chicago Sun-Times. I imagine Andre, in his senior year, figured, I'm going to start. How formative in all of this was his acceptance of not starting, and what do you recall about, letting him know and how that went?
I think people have enjoyed watching us play, and I said that when we were 0-0 with just the one person in our press conference. I said, we're a fun team to watch because we share it, we move it. The unselfishness that people see, the sharing the ball, Andre Jackson could be the biggest definition of that, of unselfishness of anybody. Andre was the 6th man of the year in the Missouri Valley last year, all right? He had great numbers, one of the top offensive field goal percentage in the country, was preseason picked first team in the Missouri Valley. And then after, I think it was 2 games, we just were clicking with Krutwig starting. And Andre we felt he was better coming off the bench like he did last year. Not one time did he complain. Not one time as he walked into my office and said, Coach, can we talk about me not starting? Never once, not once. He's always just been, and there's times where Krutwig's rolling, and Andre might play 17, 18 minutes. Not one. Does that mean it doesn't bother him? I know it's bothering him. I know it's bothering him. But the team's bigger than one person, and he's the best example of that, is that he has done whatever he's asked, played his role, and he played a big role. He's actually the leading scorer in the 4 games of the tournament off the bench. And he exemplifies unselfishness and willing to be part of something bigger than himself. And our success is happened. A piece of the success is Krutwig's, what he brings to the table. And he's understood that.
Coach, we're going to stay on the right side, just off the aisle.
Kirk Wessler, Peoria Journal-Star. Porter, I remember you talking when you first couple of years you got to Loyola about the lack of facilities even to practice on it. When the Gentile was getting renovated, there was almost no place for your guys to shoot. Were you able to build this under those conditions, and how is that face of that changing now?
Kirk's a great question. So for those who didn't know, we had Gentile Arena and the alumni gym. And right when I got there, they tore down alumni gym. And we have 4 sports in a gym. Most people don't have men's volleyball. We have men's volleyball, women's volleyball, so they had the volleyball there and the basketball here, where they tore that down, and then all that was left was this to share with 4 sports. So I had my immature stage where I bitched about it for a long time, and then I matured a little bit, because the message I was always telling our guys is you got to control what you could control. And we couldn't control it. So we'd find ways to get extra shooting in. We'd find different ways. Meanwhile, a gentleman named Al Norville, who's at every Final Four, former player, his name's on the Norville Center. Every Final Four we had breakfast about this practice gym. For the last 6 years, we've had breakfast going, we've got to get a practice gym. And they're breaking ground this spring for the Alfie Norville Loyola practice gym. And so it has been something, because our guys love to shoot. I mean, it's been a negative. I mean, like Clayton, Custer, Ben Richardson, those guys, Marcus Towns, they want to shoot. I mean, they want to, every road trip we go on, they want to get in and get extra shots. So we've had to find ways, and we've had to do that at Loyola. This journey has been a complete grassroots rebuild. I mean, I'm talking from the rock bottom first stage, and finding a way with one gym with 4 sports has been one of the ways that we've just had to find ways and control. We couldn't control it.
Coach, we'll move to the left side in the 3rd row.
Coach Moser, welcome to San Antonio. My name is Jerry Briggs. I am from San Antonio, and I was anxious to ask how you feel about the coincidence of bringing your team here to this building to play in the Final Four. 20 years ago, Coach Majerus was here with his Utah team, and just the coincidence and how you feel about that.
It is. It is a coincidence. I mean, I remember seeing, as a young coach here 20 years ago at the Final Four, I remember seeing Coach Majerus in a big Utah, a white T-shirt that said Utah Utes, and his whole team walking out. And I remember going, holy cow, how big that Utah team was. And I remember seeing him on the Riverwalk at a restaurant at that Final Four. I remember that vividly. And then fast forward to the time I worked for Coach. And out of all the things about Coach, you know, he remembers things. There's nothing that stuck in his craw more than losing that championship game to Kentucky. He could tell you every play. He could tell you everything. It physically bothered him to lose that game. And we talked about it, and the irony of him going to that one Final Four as a head coach, and for me to spend so much time with him in San Antonio, to be here, it is special. I wish he was around. I was asked a lot. They go, "What do you think Coach Majerus would say about your team?" And I think he would be proud. I think he would look at it. I think he'd like to watch us play. You know, he always, in the recruiting process, he'd say, "Porter, you know, especially big guys," he'd say to me, he go, you know, I'd bring a big kid to the table. "Hey, how about this kid?" And he wouldn't ask me, "Is he athletic? Does he have good hands, good thing?" He'd ask me this one question: "Does he love to play? Does he love to play?" Because he'd start with that, and then the development process would start. And I think he'd love our team. We share it. I think he'd say we play the right way. We've got to be the first team in Final Four history to win the first 4 games with no dunks. And it's a stat I'm not proud of. We're close. We have a finger roll lay in that some of the guys are trying to debate whether it's a dunk or not by Marcus. But I think he'd be proud of our guys and how unselfish and how they share it.
In the front on the left side, Hoops.
Yeah. Hey, Porter, congratulations.
Thanks, Hoops.
The history of Chicago high school basketball has always been pretty rich, but so many kids have left. How much do you think that success by a Chicago college team could maybe make the city more attractive for youngsters to stay and know that they can achieve something like this?
No question. When I got the job 7 years ago, we are Loyola of Chicago, and we had 1 Illinois player on our roster, and we had no Chicago public league players for an 11 or 12-year window. Think about that. Not one public league player. And Milton Doyle, who's now with the Brooklyn Nets, was our breakthrough player. He was highly ranked, and then we got him. And then Dante Ingram will tell you, he goes, "I saw Milton was there," and I looked at it. And what happened was we'd start going into the gyms, and they go, "Wow, Loyola's here." Like, we haven't seen Loyola in a while. But here's what I had to do. There was, our campus is gorgeous. I'll be honest with you. I grew up in Naperville, Illinois, played at Bennett Academy. Loyola Park Summer League was right down Sheridan. We'd all jump in 2 vans, drive in. We'd go right down Sheridan Avenue, right by Loyola to Loyola Park. And we'd go back and forth. And I've been down there, but I've never been on the inside of campus. When I played as a coach, the bus would pull up, we'd go in the arena, but I never. And when I was interviewing for the job and when I got involved in the job, I walked around and said, "I can't believe this is here." So the process started with, I started recruiting high school coaches and AAU coaches and brought them on like an unofficial visit. I said, "Just come see it," because I know they all have kids' ears. So we started the process of bringing coaches and AAU coaches, and we'd walk around campus, walk around the lake, see all the new buildings, and they're like, if I heard this one time, I heard it 1,000 times. I'm from Chicago. I had no idea Loyola's campus was this nice. So we started this process of that. Dante came, then Lucas came, and now we've had a number. Cameron Krubig's from Illinois, Christian Negron's from Illinois. So I think it's becoming cool to stay home because you can get friends and family to see you play. The Missouri Valley was a big hit. Now it's a league that resonated with that. I've been told many times, Chicago's a pro town. It's not. It's a sports town. I look at what Northwestern did last year. Northwestern captivated the city. All right? They have a couple Chicago kids now. We have a couple kids from Chicago now. It's good for Chicago basketball. It's a great area, great thing for basketball, and I hope it snowballs. I just hope they stay on our campus, not the other ones.
10 more minutes worth of questions. Let's go all the way to the back to Ralph.
Ralph Russo with the Associated Press. Porter, when the transfer issue gets talked about in college basketball, often it is framed as something that needs to be fixed. I'm wondering what your opinion is on the idea of possibly giving kids a little more freedom in the process. Not necessarily straight up free agency, but giving kids more freedom in the process. Or is it something that needs to be fixed?
Well, I'm one of the many coaches that think that the transfer rule, if they can just transfer with no, it's going to be devastating for guys as a trickle down theory. I was saying something about myself. I go, God, can you imagine the Missouri Valley? People look at that league and how good of a league it is. It's just going to be a farm system and going to pick. And where does it end? And I had a good friend of mine, Division II school in Illinois at Lewis, Scott Trow, said to me, just think about all the good Division II schools. It's going to be trickle down. People are going to look at Division II. Oh, this guy's averaging 25 at Division II school. Come on up. No penalties. It's a hard dynamic. I'm not going to say it's an easy dynamic, but that's not the answer, in my opinion. I just think that transfer rule, it is going to devastate the trickle-down theory of that. And you could be sitting there. It could uproot lives. You can spend, all this time building the program at Loyola. I've spent my heart and soul building this program from getting through all the tough times. And then you could see somebody going into this year say, you know what, Dante Ingram was really good last year as a junior. I'm going to take Dante. And then now Loyola's not here today. That's a terrible for the game. This has been great for the game, watching what we've done and watching enjoy with this group of what they've done. But that could happen to you in August. I mean, how do you plan for losing a guy like Dante Ingram at Loyola if something like that happened in August? You don't. I don't. I mean, Dante's been a 4-year work where we've developed him. He's gotten better every year. Every year he's developed. He wasn't that when he got here. And to his credit on how much he's worked, and to just be able to lose that like that, those are tough things. Those are tough things. And they're hard temptations for young kids not to take.
Coach, we have 3 questions on the right side. We're going to start in the center and work our way toward the front.
Hey, Coach. David Gardner from Bleacher Report. What do you recall about Clayton's visit when you were recruiting him as a transfer? And did you kind of cede the hands-on work to Ben a little bit more than you normally would?
Absolutely. As a coach, when you bring a kid on an official visit, you sit down there and you're like, all right, who's going to be his host? That didn't happen with us. It was the easiest decision who was going to be his recruiting host. But I remember when right away we found out Clayton was transferring. And, we got the release. And I went to see him and then drove over to his parents. It was one day to recruit him. The way the calendar fell, it was a contact day, and then it became dead. So you had to make a decision on where do you go as a head coach. And I remember it was one day then dead, and I said, all right, I'm going to go to Des Moines. We drove over, had a contact with Clayton. Then I drove there all the way to Kansas City to meet with his parents. And I hugged his mom, Terry, in Atlanta. And his dad. I had Galen and Terry. We all 3 were in a bear hug back at the hotel. And I said, that was the best living room visit I ever did on a one-day thing, because it's amazing because you had to make your decisions of where you're going to go. And so then they moved us up in the order. He had like 3 visits already planned, and he leapfrogged Loyola to that first visit. And then I pretty much knew I was in, because Ben was like, game on. All right, we're getting him. And when he visited, he had a great visit and then committed. And it's been well documented, their friendship and what they mean, and they're 2 winners, state championship. But I know you read this story, but I just want to share it because it comes from true emotion when I say it. One of the coolest moments that I've had with those 2 was after the Missouri Valley Championship. We cut down the nets. The celebration was euphoric. We're going to the NCAA tournament. We came back. We had 5 minutes of a closed door in a locker room to ourselves before we had to go to the media. The press conference. We said a prayer. We had 5 minutes, and then we broke. And then the top 7 were walking down the hall in St. Louis to the media room. And I'm walking behind Clayton and Ben, and it was the most real little kid moment you've ever seen. They had the hats with the nets in it. They're walking. They're hitting each other, going, "Can you believe this, man? We've been winning since we were in 3rd grade." And they're hitting. They're walking down. They're slapping each other's head. It was just like it was T-ball, and they just hit a home run in T-ball. They were like 2 little kids, and all they were talking about wasn't like how many you had. It was like, we've been winning since the 3rd grade. And it was a really cool moment to share with those 2 kids, young men.
On the right, just off the aisle.
Hi, Coach. Mark Tracy from the New York Times. We know you're a competitive guy, and one person who knows that is Monty Tao. We talked to him.
Who?
Monty Tao.
Oh, yeah.
And he said about 15 years ago, we talked to him, and he said he's rooting for you guys all the way. But he said 15 years ago there was a pretty heated game between you guys, and he says he thinks you stole his sport coat after that game. We were wondering if you could comment.
That's amazing. That is amazing. The higher platform you go, the more your closet of things that happen, they're going to dig up. Wow, you get the award. That game, digging that out. Yeah, that was an incident after that. And Monty and I have been great ever since that. It was a New Orleans Little Rock game. It got heated, and he wore a sport coat with a T-shirt under every game. And then we hit a basket. They came down, hit a final basket to beat us, and there was a little altercation, not started by me. And then the next year when we played them, the radio stations in Little Rock, the story became bigger than life. And apparently, with no part on my part, he had taken off his sport jacket and put it on his back and on his thing. So all he had was a T-shirt, and he was coaching the game in Little Rock. And somebody walked by and grabbed it and took it. And then it was a radio station. And the radio station was trying to auction off. I got Monty Tao's sport jacket. So that is the award for the longest bone in the closet that you dug up in this press conference. I haven't thought about that in years. That's like so long ago. That's funny.
In the front on the right, Shannon.
Shannon Ryan, Chicago Tribune. Your
Shannon.
defense probably doesn't get as much recognition as your offense, but what did you take defensively, adopt from Majerus, and what had been your own, and just the wall of culture points? How do you actually implement that when players come into the program?
I've taken so much from Coach Majerus, but he had a way, his teaching points were off the charts. And I just thought like how he would say things to guys, like threw you to the rim. Those are little statements, and how he just resonated with guys. And I'd watch, and as I went through the years with Coach and with the players, the kids, we'd be at a restaurant with the players, and the big would be there, and he'd wall up, and the guys would be like, look, that's threw you to the rim. And these sayings just started to resonate, and there was a bunch of them, and there were little teaching points that just sunk in with Coach, with the guys, and that was such a attention to detail that separated it. So when I got the job at Loyola, just going through, I started going, you know what, I'm going to use these same little terms. That's because they became habit to me, coaching them, because I was just echoing Coach. And we put them on the wall, and any player can walk in, like you guys have done, and pointed to any of them. And the accumulation of all these things make the whole. And that's the biggest thing is on the defense. And, people have made, just a small example of the power of all that is people have made, we're one of the lowest fouling teams in the country. Krutwig hasn't fouled out of a game. Well, 3 or 4 of them, it's the accumulation of 3 or 4 of them. One of them is threw you to the rim. One's reach for the lights, the verticality rule. Guys try to block, they're undisciplined, try to block shots. Threw you to the rim, show your hands, no hand checking. There's like 3 or 4 of them that go into not fouling. And here's a big one that Coach Majerus would say, and I'm gonna delete a word in there because where I'm at, it's know who you are. And Krutwig knows who he is. Krutwig's not a shot blocker. He doesn't run over and try to pin a shot to the rubber, not the glass. He's not that guy. He's a throw you to the rim, take charge guy, and he knows who he is. And that's a big part of your team defense. And these guys, it's been accumulation of a lot of little things. The closeout, high hands in the closeout, no middle. There's just all these little things that go into. Rick had an amazing way to teach the game that stuck. All of us have ways to do it in practice, and then there's a natural slippage that goes on in the game. And Coach just had a smaller band of slippage. And I'm hoping, every day I keep hoping to learn and get better from that. And he's got a huge imprint on our defense, without a doubt, Shannon.
We're officially in overtime, but we'll try to get one last one in right here on the right side.
Coach, what has it been like to coach Richardson and Clayton together? And is it easier to coach them knowing they've had that chemistry for playing together for so long?
Yeah, it's. I mean, I'm the luckiest guy to coach not just those two, all the guys. I mean, they're about winning. They don't have an ego. You can get on them. You can get on them and push them and press on them, and they respond. Because when you have, I hope this message gets out a lot. We talk a lot about it. When you have love and trust in the locker room, you can get on kids. They want to be coached. Custer and Richardson they want to be coached because they want to win. And, but you don't have to coach energy and effort. You spend most of your time coaching the technical part of the game when you coach winners. You don't spend all this time on motivation, all this time on energy, on attitude, on body language. Sometimes as a coach, you spend a ton of time on those things. You don't spend that with Richardson and Custer and Towns and Dante. You spend on the technical part of it. So that's a blessing for me as a coach. But I don't doubt their motives. They're about Loyola. They're about the team. And off the floor, are you kidding me? They're academic All-Americans, you know, and they take care of their business. You know, our team rules, you don't have to have a million of them. It's protect the team, no entitlement, and be early. That covers a lot, and they know that. They know that. They know we've talked about what protect the team. What does that involve? There's a big scope of that, but you don't have to outline every little. Rule number 1.82 of page 6. You don't have to have that kind of handbook with these guys. I mean, they protect the team, no entitlement, and be early. Been a blessing.
We want to thank Coach Moser once again.
Thank you,
and
guys.
Allow him to head to his TV network interviews. Thanks, Coach.
What? Nice. Who hit?